Welcome back to Gale Force Winds Season 2.
The Gale Force Winds podcast is proudly sponsored by Newfound Marketing, a digital marketing agency located in St. John's, Newfoundland. Visit our website at newfoundmarketing.ca to find out how we can help your business grow. Newfound Marketing, a complement to your marketing team.
Well, welcome to another edition of Gale Force Winds. I'm Alan Dale, and with me as always, my good buddy from the East End of St. John's. How are you, Jerry?
Well, you know, Alan, I always make a reference to the weather, and maybe the listeners get completely bored and their eyes glaze over. But guess what? This morning we woke up here in St. John's with about 25 centimeters of snow. We have Ian Wood on board his boat somewhere in the Caribbean. So you know what? I think weather is relevant to this conversation today, and I'm sure he's going to talk about it, and all us poor Canadians up here getting frozen to death.
Well, I'm certainly excited to be in conversation with Ian today. We've had Ian on before on one of our podcasts at a defense show, but it was short, and I thought it might be more interesting to get to know a little bit more about Ian and his journey in life. And indeed, you're right, Jerry. While we struggle it out up here in Canada in the cold, Ian is down on his beautiful boat with his beautiful wife in a beautiful part of the world in the Caribbean, and I can't wait to get into conversation. So Ian, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Good morning, Alan, Jerry. It's great to be back on Gale Force Winds. Thanks for having me. Well, I'm sitting here in Spanish Wells, which is a really beautiful town on the island of Eleuthera in the Bahamas, in my boat. And I'm happy to report the water is out of the boat and we're in the boat. So everything is good. Everything is good. Hey, a little bit about me. Born in Groton, Connecticut. Well, my Canadian Navy dad was learning how to drive U.S. submarines. But then spent the rest of my life living in Canada. Moved around quite a lot as a Navy brat, but had a great family, great mom and dad who are still with us in Ottawa. And so then I decided, what will I do next? So I was traveling around Europe, and I went through this Canadian Forces base in Germany, and there was a recruiting guy there. So I went and had an interview. Before I knew it, I ended up in the Navy with Al. And after 37 years in the Navy, I retired in 2019 to Halifax. And prior to that, I'd been one of the Navy attachés in our embassy in Washington, D.C. So we were fortunate enough to buy a boat while we were down in the States. We left it in the States, and we've been coming back down here every year for a couple of years now. And it's all about planning, you know. Any of us can have what we want as long as you stick to your plan and stick to your dreams and make sure you have a good partner with you along the way to keep everything on track.
In just a quick technical point, your journey, incredibly, we'll get into that. So you leave it in the States. Does it stay in the water all year, or does it come out for a period of time? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. It isn't cheap, but what they do is they lift the boat right out of the water, and we keep it in Fort Pierce, which is just a little further north of West Palm. They take it out of the water while we're away. They strap it down with hurricane straps, and they look after it really well for us. It's all dehumidified and they kept nice and fresh, and good service down there. And then we come back down, and they go through a launch sequence with us. And basically from Fort Pierce, it's you go down a little bit further down the Florida coastline, and it's a straight shot over to the Bahamas across the Gulf Stream. But you got to aim a little southeast so that Gulf Stream carries you right on up to the Bahamas. And so we did that recently, managed to get here for Caroline's birthday on the 10th of Feb. And we're sitting in a small private kind of dock. We basically rented a dock on the end of somebody's home, which is nice for us. We can come and go as we wish. So, yeah, we feel fortunate. We planned, we saved, and we had the support of family and loved ones, and here we are. And I just wanted to say, for all the folks who are finished struggling through a bit of a winter of discontent in Canada, spring is in the air soon, and we wish all family and friends and colleagues well. And also the poor folks in Ukraine, watching the news every day. Every day. Tough times. So we just got to stick together as a civilized world, and we'll see our way through this. So that's kind of me.
Ian, are you a dual citizen? I didn't know that about it.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. I was a dual citizen, but then in order to be one of the Navy attachés in the States, I guess you can't be a diplomat in your own country. So I just defaulted back to straight Canadian citizenship.
Okay. So, brothers, sisters? Did you grow up with brothers, sisters?
Yes, I've got a sister who married a great fellow from Boston, and she lives in Baltimore. And this week, she actually became an American. So she's a dual citizen. I kind of gave mine and tossed it over to her. You know?
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, that's how it's worked out. So so we got family. You know, Canada, U.S. is a big part of our life, and I think that's an important relationship. We all understand that pretty well these days.
For sure we do. For sure we do. Ian, so you traveled around quite a bit. Dad was in the Navy, of course. You traveled around. What were some of those interesting adventures growing up?
I would say, I spent a lot of time in a station wagon, going back and forth. You know, back then the military was always supportive of the families, but I think it's certainly a bit more supportive these days. It seems we did a lot of driving back and forth with a trailer on the back, eating Kentucky Fried Chicken, but it was a good life. I just joke. No, we did travel quite a bit. And also in my own career, I was fortunate enough, my family and I, we served in the NATO headquarters on behalf of Canada in Brussels. And like I said, we had 4 excellent years, productive years in the U.S., doing a lot of good work with the folks in the Pentagon. Some adventures. Hey, I was fortunate in my Navy career. I managed to go around both horns, you know, Cape Good Hope, Cape Horn, went to China, Japan, Korea, India, North, South. Like you, Al, did a bit of time in the ships. And thanks to some really good mentors I had in the Navy, I can't complain. It was a good career. Good adventures. Hey, but short story, honeymoon adventure. So my wife and I, in August of 1990, were sailing in her mom and dad's sailboat on our honeymoon around the Gaspé region of Quebec. And that was when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, and the 3 Canadian ships deployed. And I was off my honeymoon and on board HMCS Terra Nova before I knew it. And we did some good work over there. Luckily, 8 months later, I came home and Mom over here was still there. So that was an interesting adventure. So we thought, well, if we started our marriage, you know, in a sailboat, let's just keep this all going. So we're going to go until the rum and the money runs out.
Ian, kids? Is there kids? You have kids?
Mm-hmm. 2 wonderful daughters. Oldest, Emily, is in Edmonton. She's an occupational therapist. She works in the ICU and the burn unit. Pretty heavy duty job. She's a real trooper. And we're very, very proud of her. And her boyfriend, Alex, is in the process of getting in the RCMP steadily. So that's some good family service there. Our youngest daughter, Olivia, is in Halifax. She works in a beautiful hotel. Al and Jerry, you probably saw the Sutton Hotel right across the street from DEFSEC. Yeah. Beautiful hotel. She's a hospitality lady. She loves working there. And she's been working in the hotel industry throughout COVID with all of the precautions and restrictions. So we're proud of them that they've been able to keep working and doing their part. As you know, I just wanted my kids to be good citizens. That's all I ever wanted. Yeah.
Well, that's great. That's a fantastic goal to aim for, right? I mean, and needed in the world right now. We need good citizens. That sounds fantastic. I mean, you did have a wonderful journey in the Navy. Were you? Correct me if I'm wrong, Ian. Did you have a tour in academia as well when you were in the Navy?
I did. Yeah, thanks, Al, for bringing that up. And that was an important duty, I think. The Navy had a fellow, defense fellow at Dalhousie Dalhousie in Halifax, and it was a good opportunity as a Navy person. I had a master's degree from the Royal Military College, Strategic Studies, War Studies, and so to be immersed in academia was pretty interesting because I knew kind of more of the shipbuilding and the sort of the military side of things, but I really enjoyed learning about ocean technology. And I know that recently both of you were over in Cove and Halifax, and you saw the ocean technology, the superclusters that are really taking off. That, during my time at Dalhousie, was a really good opportunity to see that side of the maritime economy. And that makes it even more important to have a Navy, because you got to protect all that stuff and all of your resources and your own national technology. So, yeah, Defense Fellow was a great job, Al. Thanks for bringing that up.
I mean, I mean, that is a great job. I mean, so you've touched on your diplomatic service. You've touched on your work in academia and had a very, very successful career as an operator in the Navy. I don't sense that you're retired. What are you doing? I mean, I know that you're on a sailboat, and I know that you're in the Caribbean, and I applaud that. But I don't sense that you're retired. What is keeping you active at the moment?
Well, I started up a small consultancy when I retired. Hey, just another funny short story. You know, we retired home, sit in COVID. Said, that was tough because you retired, you want to go visit family and friends and so on. Well, we couldn't go anywhere. So down the street from me was the Home Depot. So I went down to Home Depot to buy a fridge one day, talked to this nice fellow, and he said, hey, Home Depot was run by retired civil servants, RCMP, military. They were throughout the crowd there. So I went and worked at Home Depot for a short while. I had the little laser gun. I was doing the inventory. It was like being back in number 2 stores in the ship. But I really enjoyed that opportunity to keep part of a team, because I think that's what a lot of people miss when they leave the Navy or any other large or small organizations. So I did that for a short while. And then I got into a maritime consultancy, much like you, Al, and others, friends that you have, just wanting to continue to contribute where there is work or research or writing that could be done for folks to keep their organizations, moving ahead in the right direction. So I do also like the fact that I still get to navigate my own ship. It's a little smaller than a Navy ship. I tell you, nav in the Caribbean is tricky. We were out yesterday for a nice quiet sail, 12 knots of wind, and it blew up to about 18. And you're sailing around with only about 5 or 6 feet under the keel, so you can see the bottom the whole time. But again, that's part of still kind of being a mariner. And I was never a great navigator, but I certainly loved being in ships. And the opportunity to still sail around and still keep my toe in the water in the maritime community, and still keep in touch with some excellent retired senior naval officers that I know you and I know well, and also the men and women in the Navy. I think that the social media presence of our Navy, I'm really impressed with, and I hope that it will bring them the folks that they need to keep the Navy moving ahead.
100%, Ian. I mean, and it is a great Navy. I mean, we both, Jerry as well, both had lovely careers in the Navy, foundational to who I am today. I know that. And I encourage so many people to look towards the Navy as a career, because it's just getting better. I mean, there's challenges for sure, but it's just getting better. It's exciting times for the Navy, exciting times for our country as well. But Ian, you bring a breadth of experience that, I mean, can hardly, be equaled by many people in the industry. You come to the table with a lot of experience, and it must be exciting to be in some of these conversations with people.
It is, and I think if it's not about you, if it's about the organization, the doors open wide open, and people will want to talk to you because they want to know. As an attaché, my analogy was always there's this person and this person. The attaché's job was just simply to attach them and get out of the way. And I know you do that well, Jerry and Al. You connect people. So that's what I find. If it's about the organization, not about you as an individual, doors open and you can have excellent conversations. And the world is modern. I can sit down here in a sailboat with high bandwidth, Wi-Fi provided to me by it's the Bahamian cell phone network that they provide all their Wi-Fi remotely too. So you can be totally connected. And if you're not in it to make money, if you're in it to make friends and have an influence, it's even better.
Right. Ian, I admired what you did at DefSec, and for many of the people in the audience wouldn't know what I'm talking about, but DefSec is a defense security show. It's basically the Atlantic Canadian premier military show, shows the equipment and stuff off, and all the players are there, all the industry players are there, all the consultants are in the room, and everybody, and all the military folks are in the room. And then I come up the escalator, getting ready to set up for our podcast at DefSec, Jerry and I, and who do I see at the top of the escalator but you? And so you're a guy, a fellow at Dal, you were an attaché, you've had a wonderful career. I thought, okay, Ian's got to be a consultant in there. Not the case. You chose to volunteer there. That says an awful lot about your character, Ian, that you want to support the community no matter what. And that's very, very impressive. Tell me what motivated you to want and be in that conversation so much.
Well, you know, when you go to the United States and you see the large structure they have, and you realize it's a big machine. It runs on relationships, but the relationships are immense for somebody like ourselves to be immersed in that. So then you come home and you see the folks that still are in the game and the folks that still want to make things move ahead for their industry or for their Navy or for their organization, and you get actually motivated by them. So in the sense of volunteering is an opportunity just to still be able to connect with people that are in the industry, but also to meet young people and say, hey, why aren't you in this industry? You know, you see the young people coming to DefSec, and they had a lot of young professionals and students come in, and they should feel welcome in that environment. So as a volunteer, you're just simply there to open the door and say, come on in, guys and gals. This is a good opportunity for you. And like I said to you on the podcast last time, it's kind of hard to lead the band. You know, I didn't mind being a roadie. And for the folks at DefSec, they ran a really tight ship. And it was an important event because it was one of the first in-person events that had happened. So, I love to volunteer. And I certainly have the time to do so, Al and Jerry. So that was my motivation.
You know, Ian, we've talked a lot about, your mom and dad are still with us yet?
Yeah.
And where are they now?
They live in Ottawa, and they used to be real global travelers. My dad retired from 37 years in the Navy as well back in the 90s. Traveled a lot, traveled around the world. And so this last couple of years has been hard for the both of them because like a lot of folks, you know, they're still healthy and they still want to travel. But I think they virtually travel through all their grandchildren and, and so on. But it's nice to see that they too are really, maybe they are the ones that gave me the motivation. You know, they're still involved in their church. My father's still involved in the music, you know, in the city of Ottawa. And that to them is, I think, what keeps them healthy. And Caroline's fortunate as well. You know, both of her parents alive and well in Fredericton. Her dad's a master mariner. You think we sailed around a bit? He went around the world many, many times. He says, yeah, I remember going to the Suez in the 60s, you know. So I think they as folks get older, if they just keep themselves motivated, keep volunteering, and make sure they have hobbies, I think that is really essential to people's mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and Alan, it's interesting, you know, you and I kind of at the end of our careers, now we've got this podcast flourishing, we're doing some things that are exciting, but I think it's really important, Ian, to hear from you. You know, I hear a lot of people, I'm 55 years old, so there's a lot of people saying, oh, you know, I'm going to retire. Really? You're going to retire? And do what? What is your plan? I love listening to you because you obviously have a plan, and it's amazing to me to see you on a boat. You know, it's one thing to dream about what you might do in retirement, but it's another thing to do what you're doing and live it. So, you know, just touch a little bit on, I guess, say the 5 years leading up to, or maybe it's 10 years. I don't know how long you and Caroline were planning this, but just touch on that a little.
Well, Caroline and I both were boaters before we met each other. Caroline raced dinghies at she's the one that gets the boat to go fast. I just point in the right direction. But we had a boat in Kingston when I was on staff at the Royal Military College. We had a boat in Victoria when I was executive officer of HMCS Vancouver. And then we thought, well, you know, that was a big part of our family health and wellness, was to be able to have something, you know, to enjoy together. So when we retired, we got another boat. But our philosophy has always been, you know, the smaller the house, the bigger the boat. And so we were always quite happy to have modest digs as long as we had something that floated. And one funny story I remember, guys, was walking down the jetty in Kingston and looking at our first boat, which was a 26-foot boat, kind of like the size Al Mulholland tried to sail around the world in. And kudos to him. Right. He had a lot of courage. He's a real trooper. But I remember looking at that boat and going, wow, that boat looks so big. That's my first boat. And it looked big because the kids were small.
Yeah.
And then the kids got bigger and bigger and bigger. And boat started to look a little smaller. So boating's been an important part of our life. I know a lot of friends who have cottages. Some people have other things that they do in their spare time. But boating is clearly something that's been good for us. It's also a bit of a gymnasium. There's never a moment when you're not doing something. So it's healthy as well.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good way.
Interesting.
Ian, you talk a lot about Carolyn there. Jerry and I are very fortunate. Our spouses support us in everything that we do. Sometimes they might tell us we're a little bit crazy to want to do the things we do, but they're there to support us, and they're our sounding board, they're our strength, they're the anchor. Tell us a little bit about the importance of that in your life. Not only where you are at the moment, but your entire journey, how that helped you achieve the success that you've had and continue to have.
Yeah, you nailed it, Al. I mean, you've both been very fortunate as well. Now I'm going to get all mushy.
Okay.
No. Hey, I've been really fortunate. I met Caroline walking on a beach in Nova Scotia, and she was just a wonderful person, a marine biologist at the time. And I only knew about the top of the ocean, and she knew about the rest of the ocean. And since then, I think that we've learned a lot together. And one thing I think I worked on for decades as a husband was to be a better listener, because I think that's advice I could give to any of my buddies out there. But still, lots of friends happily married, raising their kids, and even other friends of ours who haven't been so fortunate. But I think the truth is just you got to be honest with each other. If you're unhappy about something, or if you think you want to do something new, you got to really bounce it off your partner. And if you do that and you learn to listen, finally, things are good. Caroline and I rely on each other, quite a bit in the boat. There's only two of us. We see some boats where there's more folks. We're now getting the point in the boat where we don't really even have to talk. We kind of know what's next, and sail's a bit too big. Let's bring them down a bit. Let's go a little faster, or let's go somewhere we haven't been to before and take a few risks. But it's really, I'm babbling here, but it's all about trust and relationships, and I think that's true in all successful families.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you bring up the boat in that conversation, right? Because I think two people on a sailboat sailing around the Caribbean, I mean, you're basically working as one unit. You have to be thinking how the other person's thinking. Safety is paramount. I mean, there's a lot that can go wrong here. We're brushing a lot over, but you're in a sailboat in the middle of the Caribbean here. There's a lot that can go wrong, and you need to rely on one another. And it speaks to the relationship that is formed to get there, right?
Absolutely. We're out sailing a couple of days ago, Al, and it was supposed to be like beautiful day, and Jerry, light winds, as you have in the Caribbean. A front goes through, and they're beautiful water spouts. Water spouts are really beautiful when they're a couple kilometers away, but when you're on a starboard tack and that water spout's in a port tack and it's not giving way to you, you tack away. So Caroline and I got some really good photos and videos of the water spouts the other day. But if you stay prepared and you have contingencies and you don't let your schedule rush you, you'll always get there safely in a journey in a boat. It's when people find themselves with unrealistic timelines and start taking risks, then really they just become a hazard to the Coast Guard. Really, at that point, they should just be a bit better prepared. So knock on wood and plan accordingly. And like anything you do as a partnership in life, it's just about really making sure you got your act together if you're going to go about doing this. I mean,
I'm sure it hasn't all been sunshine the whole way through your military. I mean, you nailed one occasion there where you're on your honeymoon and all of a sudden you're off to the first Gulf War. And there must have been other points in your career that you really relied on her to get you through those times, eh?
Yeah, for sure. Hey, we did 3 moves in 3 years. But it was to get to the opportunity that I wanted to do. And then we got to the point where rank wasn't so important anymore. It was more about the opportunities and the jobs. And I've had friends who've done exceptionally well through the Navy, and other folks such as you and I, Al, the same rank, enjoyed a solid career in which we contributed. But having a partner that you can sound off of and one that you can rely on, and Caroline's the real strategic thinker, I think. I'm sort of sometimes more the tactical execution guy. But she's a good long-term thinker, because I think we put ourselves in a position where we're not always at risk, and we have a chance to actually look ahead. And
what's funny? Sorry, Ian, I love the way you describe that, with your relationship. I find in business, sometimes I'm not the great tactical thinker, but really good on execution. And frankly, it's funny, Kevin O'Leary on LinkedIn one day said, it's great to have all the ideas in the world, but if you can't execute, you're nothing. So I'm proud of the execution, frankly. Not to diminish Caroline's critical thinking.
No, and the thing is, I think it's we spend a lot of time talking to our kids, even more so now than when they lived in our house. And I think what we're finding with those gals is they learn from their mother to make conscious effort to finish what you start. And I think that's really the secret to young people these days, is they have so many opportunities that we probably didn't have. Maybe they have too many choices. Right. But to really commit to something that they want to do and have the courage to fail. If you're part of a supportive family, you could fail at something and still have the family there to support you. And then you shift gears and try something else. So much like business, right, Jerry? Have that courage to fail, but know that you've got a backstop there.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Ian. When you have a good, solid family support system, you can take a little bit of risk. You can, it's okay to fail. It's okay to try something because your family's there. I tell that to my kids all the time, we're here for you. Whatever we can do, we're here to help you through it and support you. And that's an amazing stepping off point for your daughters. And they've seen so much. They've traveled around so much. They've seen it. So now they've got the opportunity, and they've got the wonderful family network there to back them up. It must be an exciting time for you and Carolyn to watch them grow.
Oh, yeah. I know that you've got kids at the same age and stage, Alan, and Jerry probably as well. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. And you also see the things that they're much better at than you were. That's fun to see. It's like, well, I probably wouldn't have done that, but somehow, they got to that point. Thanks to the wonders of modern technology, we can spend a lot of time with our kids if we want, and we do. Good example. Caroline and I both have birthdays in February, so we can be down here at an anchor somewhere and still connect, on birthdays and those important dates. So yeah, I'm really proud of our girls. I'm really proud of the friends that they have that are in their kind of bubble, professional bubble. And just a funny experience the other day. My daughter's graduated from University of Alberta in Edmonton, and now that she's graduated, she mentors other young students. And she had a young gal go through the other day that Emily was chatting with, and it turned out to be the daughter of Major General Simon Hetherington, who was the defense attaché when we were in Washington, and he's since retired in Comox. So here we are chatting about our daughters, and they make those connections because they're comfortable to be in new locations.
Right. Okay. So basic logistics on that boat now. You're doing the navigation. Your wife is she's the one making it go fast.
Yep.
Who's doing all the cooking there? Is that a shared duty?
It is, yeah, shared duty. I'm the barbecue guy, but Caroline subsists really well in a boat like this. She makes her own yogurt. We're trying to do more of a keto lifestyle here, and I think you can, if you stock well, you can do a long journey. The other thing, it's with the price of diesel these days, it's a good thing we have sails up top rather than motoring around. But no, life is like you sleep very well in a boat. And you know that as well, both you guys. It's I know when Jerry told the story about living in the forward mess of a steamer back in the day, doing fish pats, flying out of your bunk. That happens in this boat as well. But you also meet a lot of people. You know, we just got a couple next door here from Rhode Island. A whole bunch of French Canadian folks from Quebec were on the dock last weekend. They're all traveling as a team. You get an opportunity to really connect. And if you ever have a problem, the community is there. You'll find people with tools show up, a new starter for your engine. There is a real sense of we will subsist and be supportive. But more to this local community, Spanish Wells is a really interesting town. Around the time of the American Revolution, there was some folks in the United States who wanted to leave because they weren't comfortable with what was happening. Some, as we know, came to Canada, and a lot of folks came from the southern states over to the Caribbean just to sort of get away from that environment. They also were very interested in having some religious freedoms that weren't offered in England and in the U.S. as it was evolving. So Spanish Wells is a small community like you'd see in the Maritimes and also in northern British Columbia, a coastal community. And they work together as a team. You know, there's Carl, the propane guy. And when the blue ship comes in, you know, you get, 50-50 cream in the grocery store. It's a small town, and everybody looks out for each other. And I think it's just they've got a really neat accent down here. It's kind of a New Englandish accent, but the people are very, very, very helpful and extremely community oriented.
Ian, I'm going to jump in there and kind of introduce something. What's the name of, and there's a point to where I'm going with this. What's the name of the cable company you're connecting through? Do you have any idea?
It's Bahamas Telecorp, and it's called, the system we're on is called Alive, ALIV. And it's basically a little dongle, basically picks up the cell phone signal and transmits and receives the internet through that. So as long as you have cell phone signal, and I think it'll take off in Canada too, as long as you have a cell phone signal, you can have very reasonable up and download of the internet in any remote location.
This is an amazing, I mean, Alan, you and I have interviewed a lot of people through this wonderful medium, and they're in their homes and not getting as good a connection as you're getting. I want to introduce something, though. There's a Newfoundland connection to technology in the Bahamas. You may be aware of it. It seems like you're connected through the phone company, but a guy by the name of Phil Keeping from Newfoundland actually founded Cable Bahamas. Unfortunately, he passed away in an accident, but are you familiar with that?
I did not know that, but it's really, there's a lot of Canadian connection down here. You know, it's the Imperial Bank of Canada in Bahamas. And I didn't know that, Jerry, but this is an area where people will accept new technologies because, you know, they're a long way from other services. So that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Well, Google it. He actually owned a Harley Davidson dealership here in St. John's and fell from a lift and died, but incredible individual. And there's a gentleman named Brendan Paddock who I know of. I don't know him. I'd love to get him on the podcast, but he owns Columbus Capital Corporation. So Newfoundland and Canadian business people have done extremely well and brought some, Canadian internet technology to that area. So I just thought that'd be relevant to some of our listeners.
No, absolutely. And that's a good link, from me here to you at home. There's also a bit of there's a lobster link in this story too, Jerry. The lobster industry in Bahamas is very, very profitable. And the Spanish Wells is one of the major ports where all of the lobster harvesting or fishers come in. And they have a really interesting sustainable approach to their lobster industry down here. They create little habitats. They build little sort of basically big picnic tables and they leave them on the bottom. And through kind of a traditional relationship, they have carved out all of their own kind of regions, and they still free dive to catch the lobsters.
Really?
And so it's a very successful business down here. And it's
every red lobster in the U.S.
Yeah, every red lobster in the U.S. and Canada. If you get one of those Langostura, kind of a Caribbean lobster, I'd say 50% of them came from this part of the Bahamas. So for all of the fishers at home doing sustainable practices, keep it up. It clearly works down here in the Bahamas. They've had the best lobster season that they can remember, and it's about sustainable practices.
Right.
I gotta ask. Sorry, Alan. I just gotta ask this as well. I'm looking at a Google map of the Bahamas. I've looked at it before, but frankly, now that I'm on with you and looking at where you are exactly, all of the islands there. Educate our listeners. Like, are they all part of the Bahamas? Like, I know Nassau. There's so many islands all the way down to the Turks and Caicos. Like, are they all like? Educate us. Educate me. Maybe I'm the only one who doesn't understand the whole area.
Yeah, no, it's the Bahamas is basically a commonwealth of all of those islands, and 700 islands. The captain tells me,
I thought she was the admiral.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. Sorry, yeah, I think I'm the captain. She's the admiral. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Sorry.
No, Bahamas is made up of just hundreds of islands, many of them in uninhabited. And there's a number of industries that they tried to bring to Bahamas. They tried to have a cattle industry here, but the requirement for water for cattle just was impossible. And but so yeah, all these are connected. And the main islands, there's the Exuma chain. We're in the Eleutheras. There's New Providence, where Nassau is. That's a big, busy city there. And then there's this huge island of Andros, which really only the U.S. Navy is there, because the U.S. Navy does subsurface research in that area. But they are all the Bahamas, and they're all connected by postal boats and small aircraft, and they consider themselves as Bahamian, but there clearly is a "I'm from this island" mentality, much like there is everywhere in the world, isn't there? We're Maritimers, but Al, you're in PEI, and Jerry, you're in the Rock. You're still Maritimers, but you're from your island.
Yes.
So for our guests, Andros Island, often referred to as Area 52. So for our guests, they might want to look that up and what goes on at Andros Island, but a very interesting place nonetheless. Ian, there'd be many of our guests that would be listening to you in a little bit of envy, wondering, how can I do that? How complicated is it to replicate that lifestyle that you're describing to us? I know there's a tremendous amount of planning that has to go into this, but how difficult is it to you and your a partner, a couple, to purchase a boat and live like this? Tell our guests how complicated that may be, or maybe it's quite easy. I don't know.
I think if you start with the budget that you have, plan accordingly, you can always get a bigger boat. But if you get too big of a boat and you can't afford it, you'll end up with no boat. Right. So don't ever hesitate to start with a reasonable sized boat, in your local region. And then as you get more confident in your ability to boat and your ability to own. But one of the things that's important is the ability to maintain your boat. There are some things some black boxes, Al and Jerry, I won't open, but I'm becoming more careful and more comfortable to just go ahead and fix it. And that's something I wasn't really great at in my career, because I just got to break stuff as a naval warfare officer, and all the engineers were always there to fix it. So yeah, you want to be able to maintain your boat if you own it. And also you need to be able to stay healthy. And part of that is being clean. What's really important in a boat is to clean, just like a ship and a hospital and anywhere else. So if you get the right co-captain and you get your budget sorted out, and then just double it just for the heck of it, because it will get expensive. But then also don't live beyond your means. You don't have to see the world. You don't have to travel far and wide. You just need to be able to be on the water and enjoy the actual adventure. And if you plan accordingly and keep your diet simple, and also take care of your equipment. I know Al's got lots of toys, Jerry, so I know he's good at taking care of his toys. But if you take care of your equipment and don't worry about starting small, you'll eventually end up in a boat. And our boat's 40 feet. It's comfortable, but it's also a boat that you can be out in a bit of a lump and not have to worry. And so start in a lake, and then you'll end up in the Bahamas.
That's great advice. Ian, we always ask our guests to leave the audience with a piece of advice. Now, you're a couple that have had a wonderful journey together. There's no doubt about it. I can tell from the conversation that you're still very much in love with one another and in love with life, which is just fantastic. What would that piece of advice be?
I would have to say, when you get towards the end of your career, you don't just have to stop everything you used to do. You know, you can still have a relationship, if I may say, with the organization you left. Because during that period of transition from, formal roles into a retired role, you can still have that relationship to keep yourself mentally healthy and feel engaged and committed. And the other thing, I think, is to just set your goals reasonably well, because a lot of people try and take on too much. And the best advice is debt. Just stay out of debt. I know it's going to be hard to tell my kids that, as the interest rates go up at home and they love to buy a home. But if you can keep yourself in the box of what you think you can do, what you're capable of, save your money accordingly, and just enjoy what you have in your life. I know that sounds kind of corny, but not everything has to change overnight when you retire. My dad's advice, has these wonderful, wonderful sayings. And he said when he retired, he simply biodegraded. He moved out of the organization, changed into something new, something that could be used by somebody else, and they maintain a healthy lifestyle. So a bit of a ramble there, but stick to your plan, and don't think too big.
Right.
I'd leave it at that.
Jerry, your thoughts?
Well, it's funny, in many listening will probably think what you and Caroline are doing is thinking too big. But the nuances of what you just described, live within your means. I listened to a podcast, Entree Leadership, Dave Ramsey. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He has a saying, and it's this: live like no one else, and eventually you will live like no one else. And I'm like, when you think about that, it's what I believe you two are doing. This is a breath of fresh air. Am I envious? You're damn right. As I look out at 20 centimeters of snow,
sorry,
could I do it? Yeah. I don't think I have. Love my wife. A boat is something we'd never end up on. But I love the whole way you've approached your life and shared it with us, because you know what? It's what's possible. And that's what is exciting. Despite the fact, you're close to the end of your career, there's still so much. And the description of how your father transitioned and all that, I just want to say thanks for sharing all that. Love it.
You're welcome. Thanks, Jerry. Thanks, bud.
Well, another wonderful edition of Gale Force Winds. But I guess before I end it all off, I don't know if there's any way, Ian, you can turn that camera a little bit left or right so we can talk to the Admiral for 1 minute.
Yes, of course I can. And then I can take you for a wee walkabout in the upper decks if you want.
That'd be fantastic.
And how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
It was important for me to correct Ian and when he called you the captain, because you told us at the beginning you're the Admiral. Ian, shame on you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. We co-captain.
So you heard that whole interview. You've heard the pride of which Ian talks about you and what you're doing in the moment, and you're both to be celebrated, very much so. Listening to that, what would your piece of advice be to us?
Well, we always joke because every time the boat is, livable, but every time we go to put something away or take something out, we always say there's a place for everything and everything in its place, so that when you go back to get something, it's where it belongs, and there's no mixing stuff up. So that's our approach to living in a very small space. Because we left a beautiful condo in the States that we were lucky to live in, 2,500 square feet, and moved on to a 40-foot sailboat. So space is important.
How many square feet are on a sailboat, if you guys know, estimate?
Well, we have 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a galley, the living room, which is here, and then a beautiful big outdoor space in our cockpit, and and upper decks.
A couple hundred square feet.
A couple hundred square feet. Maybe.
Yeah, I think you could probably get that for about $750 in Toronto.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your journey with us. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people listen to it and say, wow, I want to try that. And thanks very much. So are you going to take us on a little tour, see some of that sunshine, and then
I will. I'll pop you up top there, bud.
This is the part where everyone is going to get extremely envious.
Yeah. So allegedly, this is the captain's cabin, but we know, in my dreams, right? So you'll be happy to know the big dredge barge just went by, so the water is all muddy. All right, here we are. So welcome to Spanish Wells.
Oh, wow.
You see that, Jerry? You okay, bud?
No, I'm not. I'm melting into my chair.
All righty. I love the name of the boat over there, the lobster boat, Breadwinner 2.
There you go.
So yeah, we got this is the car. Car hangs off the back of the boat. It's our little Zodiac. And then this guy down here, if you can see way down there, he's doing his best to dredge the harbor.
Right.
And just put a big rig on the back of a barge and drive the barge. But
so why do they do that? Sand accumulates and then you had to dredge it out?
It does. This whole area was really these mangrove swamps back here, and they just dredged it all out so as to make it an area where all of the fishers could come and go. And there's a pretty reasonable tide through here, and so they just move the sand around. They're careful not to dump it anywhere and affect the sort of fauna or flora over there, but they just keep the sand moving in the channel, and that must be their approach. They're extremely conscious of their environment down in this part of the world, and they naturally respect it. So,
right. What's the temperature like there now, Ian?
It's nice. It's like 26, 27 degrees, but that's pretty much the same all the time, boys. But what happens is you can go from 25 degrees humidity, like it was yesterday when a good north wind comes up, to like 80% humidity. Right. But I'll just joke here quickly. It's obviously laundry day in the boat next door.
Right.
And it's laundry day in our boat today, once we finish with you handsome fellas. And yeah, we got our own little gardens, get some mint going there. A little parsley over there. So yeah, it's fine. It's a nice spot.
Well, that's fantastic, Ian. So
here's the parking spot. Here's where we're parked up here. Trying to rely on a little Mother Nature for some air conditioning. And I tell you, here's the thing you got to get when you get a sailboat: these little fold-up bicycles.
Right. Oh yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So you take those with you?
Yeah, we don't have any ourselves yet, but we look on at envy with
right.
People do. So we're up for a bit of a blow tonight, boys. We're probably going to be up about 20, 25 knots. So Al, you'll be happy to see we got number 1 and number 6 doubled up, fore and aft, port and starboard, and we are in good shape.
What's the name of the boat?
Sorry, Alan. I just want to ask this. Say this. You love the technology, but I'm a little disappointed that I can't somehow come right into this and end up on your boat. That's where Zoom needs to go. Come on, Zoom, get with this. Back to Star Trek. What was that? They used to beam me up. Beam me up, Scotty.
Exactly. Well, Jerry, we got room, so come on down.
What's the name of the boat, Ian?
The name of the boat is Yamea, Yankee Echo Mike Alpha Yankee Alpha, and she is the goddess of all oceans and rivers in African history, and she comes in the form of a mermaid. And father of 2 daughters, I'm all good with that. Bit of girl power there.
Good for you. Well, Ian, thanks for another edition. Thanks for the conversation. We really appreciate it, and thank you very much, Caroline. We certainly appreciate being part of your journey here today. So another wonderful edition of Gale Force Winds. Now, here's a couple that are living their best life. There's no doubt about it. Had wonderful careers, raised families, have great family connections back home in Canada, and now they're exploring a little bit together as one unit on a beautiful boat now in the Bahamian island chain down there. And what a pleasure it was to have you on the conversation today. And I always like to leave the podcast with my own piece of advice. And quite frankly, the world needs more Ian and Caroline. So thanks very much.
Thanks, boys. And best wishes to all of you. Thanks for reaching out again, mates.
Cheers.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Winds. That's Gale Force Winds, WINS.com.